Good evening. Welcome to the West Jordan Planning Commission meeting for April 7th, 2015. We do have 5 out of the 6 members of the commission present tonight. Commissioner Pack is excused for the evening. First item on our agenda is our consent calendar, which is the minutes from our March 17th, 2015 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Quinney. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
5.
Thank you. 5-0. Our first public hearing for the evening is an item that was brought back to us from City Council, amending the West Jordan Municipal Code, Section 13-7C-6, amendments to the land use map, finding E in the general plan, amendment findings in the zoning ordinance. Right, let's continue our discussion.
Here we are again. As you recall, back in February, the Planning Commission did take a look at this, and they forwarded a recommendation to eliminate finding B from the section that Commissioner Watts just mentioned, to remove finding B from those findings. That recommendation was forwarded to the City Council. City Council took a look at that in March and referred it back to the Planning Commission for further discussion. What we as staff have done is have put together just an option for the Planning Commission to consider, and that option is included in your packets. I do have a copy here that we can refer to up on the screen, if it will work. So these are the findings, and again, this is for any general plan amendment, and then including any changes to the future land use map, as we talked about in the pre-meeting. Our recommendation would be to put, this is more, I think, to clarify what the applicant's role is in this. I think there's some discussion about whether or not, to what level we would have the applicant demonstrate that they've looked at all optional sites as part of this. So that's one point of discussion that we want to have. So with that, I think we'll just turn it back to the Planning Commission for discussion, and just a recommendation back to the City Council.
Thank you. This is scheduled as a public hearing. Any questions for staff before I open up the public hearing? Okay, well then, if there's anybody who would like to comment on this particular item, the time is now yours. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this, and we will continue our discussion on finding B. Commissioner Jacob.
Somebody had to kick it off. Yeah, one thing that this finding that I just kind of thought of about this finding as it is currently written is it will become less and less applicable. Well, it will become more and more applicable. It'll change its applicability one way or the other as the city is built out. In other words, right now, optional sites abound because we have a third of the city that has nothing on it. Well, not a third, but a large portion. An ever decreasing portion, but a large amount of acreage way out by my house that has nothing on it. It's farmland. So as far as optional sites go, we got optional sites coming out our ears. But when this is built out, optional sites may be more of a, and maybe more pertinent to really dig into that. Because right now, the answer for is there any optional sites? Well, yes, there is. There just is. Doesn't matter what you want to build. We have optional sites for everything right now because we have all this land. So finding B as written now can really never be met as it's written right now under the original intent, the way I understood it. So something to just keep in mind as we discuss this is that this is going to have applicability now and applicability in the future, unless the code has changed again. But ideally we get this right the first time, right? So optional sites right now, we have optional sites for everything. This finding can never be met the way it's written right now. But that said, in 15 years or 20 years when the city is, I hesitate to say more complete, but we'll say more built out, and optional sites are restricted, then we really need to dig into this and say, well, let's look at this. Is there another place where this is going to fit better? Because right now, parcel X is zoned for medium density residential. And if we put a whatever landfill on that place, it's not going to work very well. Let's look at some other sites because, or there's another site that's already planned for that over here. Let's keep the landfill where it's going to be and not change this. You know what I mean?
So you're saying the proposed amendment will be compatible with other land uses existing or planned in the vicinity?
Not necessarily.
That sounds like the criteria
No,
you just hit there.
Right, but not necessarily, because the vicinity, what existing or planned vicinity is not necessarily what I'm talking about. The criteria in question is there optional sites available? And I see what you're saying. You're saying that it's already covered under number C, at least in the future, because.
But that, and dovetailing off of that, we have someone come in that says, I want to put use X right here. It's not currently planned for that.
Right.
That's what and like I mentioned earlier, C, I says, as I look at that, it's, well, that can cover. Okay, no, it doesn't fit well there because of the other things around that area.
Existing or planned.
But when I look at, I'm struggling with this other optional sites. If someone were to come and say, hey, I want to build whatever on this particular lot, and we say, no, it doesn't fit well there, let me give you an optional site. But we don't have that ability. The developer might not have that ability.
And in all fairness, I don't think that's what's being proposed, or what's even being considered under option B as it sits now. It's you want to build apartments here. We plan on apartments being over there, but you want to build them here. We plan on use X to be here. So
the way this is written, it's really kind of open-ended, and there are no teeth at all. So I think maybe I can't second guess the city council, but that might be possibly what they wanted from us, is to maybe put some teeth into something like this.
I don't know though that the way that it's written that can be done, because it seems to me like the only thing that we keep coming back to is will it fit with the city's general plan? But that's in finding A. That's the meat and potatoes of finding A, is that it qualifies and quantifies with the city's general plan. And I think what we're doing with finding B is just that we're asking the developer or whoever to go back out and find an alternate piece. But the developer isn't going to buy a piece of land typically without its availability, the price, and then the demographic. They're trying to fit whatever they think is going to be the best for that area, and they're not going to waste their money buying a piece of land that's not going to try to fit that demographic. On the other hand, I think I'm a huge proponent of the city's general plan, but that's in finding A, and I guess I just don't understand what finding B is trying to do.
I think I'm following right along with you there.
that said, if I may,
Please.
the finding A could become the next finding B, as far as that goes. Just because, and I throw this out here in all seriousness, even though it may not sound like it, the proposed amendment conforms to and is consistent with the city's general plan. That's how finding A was just being discussed. Whether that's not exactly what it says, but let's just pretend that it says about that. The proposed amendment, it conforms to and is consistent with the city's general plan. The city's general plan is what's being altered with an alteration of the land use map. So how can an alteration of the plan be consistent with the plan that it's altering?
Well,
Does that make sense?
it's consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies.
Right. which is not necessarily consistent with,
Which is not the plan.
which is the plan but not the map.
On the same hand, though, I mean, you can use that verbiage and say, you know, if someone wants to put a landfill in the middle of a residential area, it definitely doesn't, you know, it doesn't fit with the adopted goals, objectives, and policies. So it's very easy to come to the conclusion at that point that it's a no. You know, where any developer that really wants the property, according to finding B, is just going to tell us that they've looked elsewhere and they can't find what they want. So I don't think I think it's redundant.
One other point that I'd like to bring up, and now just so I'm like, no, I remember what it was. One thing that comes around a lot, that we hear a lot from a developer or from an applicant or amongst ourselves or from staff or from whoever it might be that's proposing a change is, well, this parcel has been planned for and zoned for, using a recent example, this parcel's been zoned for professional office for years. We've never had any interest in it. Now this person wants to build houses there. Well, nobody's ever wanted to build professional office there. So let's go ahead and let them build houses because there's the market for that. But then I think what we're doing in a situation like that, and I used finding B to vote against that. It passed. It does. What we're saying in that case is that our short-term vision, or what's today's market force, is more important than what the long-term plan was. Does that make sense? When we hear and we see something that says, well, it's been planned to be professional office for 10 years and nobody's ever showed any interest, and now somebody wants interest, but they don't want professional office, they want houses. Well, the general plan was made because we need some professional office in the city. So if every time we get an application, we just say, yes, this fits right now, down the road, the grander vision is going to be sacrificed.
Although, respectfully, if someone came to us and said that, it would be very easy to say, under finding A, that doesn't fit with the policies, goals, and objectives of the city plan, so no. I just see that finding A, C, and D accomplish everything that finding B would be in there for. And like we talked about before, I just have a problem with the demonstrated in finding B. I know that, you know, there would be maybe a way to quantify that, but if I was charged with trying to find a way to quantify that for, you know, some sort of burden of proof to show that the applicant has demonstrated an awareness, I don't know that I would be able to come up, you know, with a way that they couldn't very easily circumvent. And that's really the only, that demonstrated an awareness is really the only thing in that whole finding that has any kind of bite at all.
I agree. I also think it's redundant in the proposed language. Not economically or physically, or excuse me, other locations are economically or physically impractical for the proposed use or not reasonably available. Physically or economically impractical, I don't think will ever come up if not reasonably available is the trump card. I think you can eliminate that and just go with other locations are not reasonably available to the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're economically or physically practical or not practical, they're not available. Practicality is shot.
Well, I've been mulling this over for a week, and I can't come up with any proposed language. I keep coming to the same conclusion that we had when we first decided this, was that it needs to be eliminated.
And I had proposed language that I thought was really good, and I left it on my laptop, but sorry. It was basically the same.
It doesn't sound like anybody has a proposed alternative to this, and nobody seems to be strongly in favor of what we're seeing here. Commissioner Scotty?
Well, I would like to make a motion that we strike finding B from the amendment.
I'll second that. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion?
Didn't we already do this?
Yes, we did.
That's my only question on the motion, and, you know, the more we discuss it, the more kind of clear I become on how I feel about it. But again, I mean, Insanity's doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Granted, the city council has changed by one member since then, but it was a 2-4 vote. It would take more than one. So, I mean, are we heading down the same path again? That said, I don't have any better ideas.
And that's where I'm at as well.
Other than striking economically and physically and practical, and the availability part is going to be the trump card anyway, as was stated.
The motion is to just strike the whole thing.
I really just don't see that if we take any of that verbiage and mix it around, or everything's still covered in A, C, and D. We still have just as much right to reject something that doesn't fall in line with the city's general plan based on A alone.
Can we eliminate C, D, and D? Just go ahead.
No.
All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 3-2, forwarding a recommendation to City Council to strike finding B, the dissenting votes being cast by Commissioner Jacob and Commissioner Hyder. Very well. Well, we had much more in-depth discussion this go around than we did the last time we brought this up.
First one on the agenda this time.
All right, which brings us to our next public hearing, which is the Trujillo rezone, 7359 South, 1300 West, rezoning .92 acres from R110E to R18D. Price Development Group. Dave Price is the applicant. Is the applicant present? The time is now yours.
Commission members, my name is Greg Wilding. I'm with Wilding Engineering. I'm here representing the owner and the applicant tonight on this matter, and I'm really not certain how far along you guys are and how much understanding you have of this project, but I think it's fairly straightforward. We're seeking a rezone and then an approval of a subdivision, the Trujillo Cove subdivision. This is kind of one of those unique pieces of property that's one of those remainders left over in the city. And in working with city staff, we feel that this is the most prudent way to develop this in the existing neighborhood. Our objective was to rezone such that we could get this front lot subdivided away from the parcel as a whole. And the rezone was required to get a lot width that would fit for this. So, and of course the lots, the finished lots are about the same size and bigger than the ones around them, so we feel like it's a good fit for the neighborhood. And really, I wanted to make myself available for any questions or concerns you might have tonight.
Any questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you. We'll save you some time after the public hearing if there's anything you'd like to address.
Thank you.
Mr. Gardner.
As Mr. Wilding? Mr. Greg, I don't know. Excuse me. Said the property that Mr. Trujillo owns is in the R110 zone currently, the same as the properties to the south of his. The properties to the north are R18 zone. Mr. Trujillo wants to do a simple lot split, which would require a flag lot. The requirements for flag lots in the R110 zone would require 85 feet of frontage for a lot, plus an additional 20 feet for the stem portion of the flag or the road going to the rear lot. Greg, if you, it kind of shows the flag lot, you can see that configuration. Right now he has 101 feet, so he's 4 feet shy of the 85 feet plus the 20 feet for the driveway. His proposal is to rezone it to R18, which would be consistent with the lots to the north. And it would reduce the lot width of lot 1, as you can see on the graphic, to 75 feet, plus it would still be 25 feet for the stem portion. So in reality, what would be required is 95 feet, but in reality it has 101 feet. So it really would be just 4 feet less than if it was R110. That's the whole motivation for the rezone, is to achieve this flag lot subdivision. It'll never be anything more, well, I shouldn't say never, I'll never say never, but at this point it's only proposed to be 2 lots, which are much larger than 8,000 square feet, and 2 homes. 1 home already exists, so there'd be an additional home that will be serviced off of 1300 West. So, staff recommends approval for this zone change. It meets all the criteria or the findings of the ordinance for a zone change request. Do you have any questions for me on this? So you're not entertaining the subdivision as a minor subdivision that's all done administratively. So what the Planning Commission is really looking at tonight is just a recommendation to the council to change the zoning. So.
Any questions for staff? Excellent. Now open this to the public. If there's anybody who would like to comment on this particular item, the time is now yours. We'd invite you to the microphone if you give your name and contact information in case city staff would like to follow up with you. And you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Kenneth R. Larson. I live in that area right over there. Just I'm a little more to the south and east of that zone there. I'm at 7401 Foxtail Bay in cul-de-sac. I approve this. I think it's a great thing for him. That chunk of property is enormous in size, and it's a lot of work for one man to take care of. This way he could split it. And he maintains his yard very, very well. He does a good job of taking care of anything around there. He's always been very prudent in that respect. If there was any bad things to say about the area, just go north about a block and a half, and you got a house that's been sitting there for 5 years with boards on it, and nothing's ever been done to it. Mr. Trujillo takes very good care of his stuff and is very, very kind about what he does in the area. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment on this item? And close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for further discussion. Or a potential motion, Commissioner.
I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. I think this is a great fit. So based on the findings of the staff report and the explanation this evening, I move that we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone the property at 7359 South, 1300 West from the R110E to the R18D zone.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Sikoski. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Brings us to our last agendized item, which is a discussion on Oaker West and building heights for congregate living facilities. Who wants to take that?
I will.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Oaker West has a application into the city for amending the master plan for 120 acres. It's located northwest of U111 and 7800 South. They made application last May. The moratoriums have been placed on multifamily, and subsequent changes to the growth management section of our code for cap and grade have caused them to rethink some of the land uses that they proposed in this master plan, and would like to have an informal discussion with the Planning Commission on one of the alternatives, which is a congruent living facility. So with that, I'll turn the time, unless Ray has some comments, I'll turn the time over to Curtis Levitt and Tim Sof.
My name is Tim Sof. I'm with Think Architecture, representing both Homes and Miller Development in this regard. Is it best to point with this, Greg? Is that what you were telling me? I'll make a guess. Is it that one? Okay, good. And does this advance it as well? I think you might already be familiar with the site, but just to point out, this is U111 in this location and 7800 South. So it's out there a ways. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this particular corner formerly was destined to be on your general plan commercial. It's just been that way for a long time. And given the topography and so forth, and that corner particularly, and what's happening around it, I believe that the owners looked at another possible use. Something more in this nature. This is a 55 and older community, and it bridges the gap between assisted living and a care facility, but it is for active adult senior living. Oops. Just to go through a few of the features inside. They are individual suites. The majority are one bedroom. There are some 2 bedrooms, but it's about a 78% one bedroom community. Most patrons here, and not all, but most, are 77-year-old widowed females for the most part. They can care for themselves, but on the occasion that they need extra help, transportation, meals, things like that, they have an option. They can cook breakfast and lunch for themselves and have a congregate meal in a dining room in the facility. There's a transport that can take them shopping or to the temple or any place like that. So there are elements that they can contract for, even medical services, that they can contract for a la carte through the management group. Some of those things could be laundry or housekeeping or something like that, but they pay for that separate and apart and individually, depending on their needs. One of the interesting things that we've learned about this, there's one in existence of this type about 9300 South and 7th East in Sandy. And then one that is just being completed that is more like this. If you know where the Harmons is on Pony Express Road, the east frontage road, at the Bangeter off-ramp there, it's kitty corner to that, kind of a little bit to the south and east. As we've talked with Tom and staff about this, that facility is ready to be opened at this point, and we would love to get the city out there to go through the facility and look at it in its real version rather than the pictures that I'm showing you. But I wanted to point out this is not a rest home. It's not a rehab center. This bridges the gaps to where, in fact, I have a mother-in-law that broke her neck last Friday, and she's in a facility in Taylorsville. The cost of that facility is $4,500 a month for her to be there. They have nurses, they care for her, they put her to bed. When she recovers, insurance will pay for that facility for 100 days. But beyond that, the question is, where is she going to go? She's 93 years old. This facility is more on the nature of $1,000 a month. And then if she needs extra help, transportation, she doesn't drive, she can get those on an as-needed basis if her family doesn't provide that. But so it fills that gap between a nominally healthy person and one that needs more extensive care. So that's where a facility like this comes into play. In Draper, we called it a congregate care facility and defined it as such. But it basically follows this pattern. As you look at it, you can see it in context there. I have a larger site plan that we can show like that. It's basically all on one level, 5 levels tall. So it's accessed by, it's accessed by surface parking, and it has a very low parking requirement because of the nature of the facility itself. Many of the patrons don't drive.
Did you say 5 levels high?
5 levels high. They're all connected in interior corridors and elevators in all the levels, and there are activities and venues on each level for different things. A genealogical center. There's a computer center. There's exercise. There's any number of theater. There's there's a library. And they are interspersed on various levels of the building. But it's all wheelchair accessible and then vertically accommodated by elevators. But its parking ratio, given a use like this, is about 1.2 stalls per suite. So, and even at that, there are many vacant spots. Generally, the way you'll see it is parking is secured at various points so that visitors will park in one area and patrons will have secured parking under carport in another area with access by card key. Just to look, this is very similar to the one that I'd like to take you to out in Draper right now. It's a very high quality finish. One thing that we've learned in doing the first one as kind of a guinea pig is what people expect. The one in Sandy was planned for a pool and clubhouse, only to find out that the patrons didn't want a pool or clubhouse. They didn't want to take grandkids to a pool for fear that they couldn't rescue them if they got in trouble, or they'd slip on the deck or something like that. So in lieu of that, there are some, if you go back to the site plan, in these areas in here, there are some very formal courtyard type activities. Outdoor cooking, big pergola overheads, fountains, benches, gardens, all kinds of things that are more passive in nature than active. They love to take a stroll after dinner out and around and back, or out and back in this way. So it's a different kind of use. There's not a big impact upon social activities because they provide their own. On parks, because it's basically interior. On traffic, because they don't travel a lot of places other than in groups. It's a quiet facility. Most of the length of stay is till they die, generally. But and please comment if you see something that you have a question about as I go through some of these renderings. As you can see, there's a very large porte-cochere. We've expanded this porte-cochere portion. If I go back, you can see this one had a 2-story element where you could come out on top as kind of an extension to a dining room or outdoor eating area. but we've expanded it to a degree that you'll see in the site plan where you can park more cars under the porte cochere, because that's where people are coming to pick up their parent or their loved one inside. So we've accommodated it for it to park 6 cars underneath and still pass traffic through it, for people that are waiting to pick up their parents, rather than have them walk out into the parking. They can pick them up right there where we shield them from the weather a bit. I think that's it. Any questions that I can help answer?
Commissioner Dick?
Yes, thank you. It looks great. Don't get me wrong. What's on my agenda says discussion of building heights.
Okay.
So are we going to discuss building heights?
Sure. And maybe I could just mention that the renderings that I showed you and the facility in Draper that I'd like to have a field trip on, at least that's what we've been talking about, is having a combined field trip out there. I'd like you to consider this in your consideration of height. In this case, height doesn't increase intensity because of the type of use that it is. Now, visually, yes, you can tell it from 3 stories or 4 stories, but the finish and just the general nature of the layout is not really imposing. And it's not reflected in increased intensity with traffic or anything like that because of the type of use that it is. So as you consider height, if you would, consider the type of use, and that most of the circulation inside, we try and keep corridor lengths pretty short, from elevator to stairwell to elevator to unit, that sort of thing, but interconnect them all so that they can go up and down and horizontally easily enough. So 5 stories in height doesn't mean an impediment, and it doesn't mean extra intensity as far as the land use. My feeling is at this location, and given the nature of the topography out there, 5 stories isn't going to be felt as if you were to find 5 stories across the street or somewhere else.
I would agree for that location just because, it's on a hill.
Yeah.
As you go north on U-11 there, you go up the hill. So you come at it from the north, it's going to look like any other building.
Exactly.
Coming out from the south, it'll just look like part of the hill. So, but we're talking, citywide applicability possibly here. So I want to make sure that we're not getting into too much of a site-specific discussion.
Understood.
So I appreciate that answer, though. Thank you.
Commissioner Iyer?
Question I had was, are these planned to be rental units or are they condos?
They are for lease, not for sale. They are for lease, and basically the purpose of that is when a person moves in here. For instance, if my mom were to live here, she doesn't want to buy and be saddled with ownership and then disposal after she goes. My mom's 96 and could live here, and I'd love her too, because it's very nice and it's close. But she doesn't want to have the family to be burdened with it afterwards when she goes. So these are for rent or for lease by design.
Greg, just for comparison, there's some apartments to the southeast corner across the street there. How many stories are those?
There are 3. Sorry. Go ahead, jump on in, guys. The Serendities are 3.
Yeah, they're 3. I drive by them, but I don't take note.
Yeah. Take my kids to school right past them every day.
Give us a Google map second.
Okay.
We were just working with heights right now, in fact, based on how tall you want your main floor. I think in most of these congregate settings, you want a taller main floor and then maybe 9s to 11s on your other upper floors. Give us a second.
Okay. And as you come across right there, don't you go up a little bit of a hill before you dip down to U-111 right at the end of 78 there?
Yeah, there's the train bridge right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be above that.
In fact, it'd be
From the north side, yeah. From the south side, it would appear fairly large, but.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of my question. Tom, maybe, or anybody, Tom, Greg's busy. When we're looking at this, would this fit under like an SHO overlay as far as parking requirements and things like that? I know we're talking building heights, but they're figuring that out over there.
Well, it would fit with that overlay, but the base zoning, I think, that's being contemplated by Holmes Homes is planned community. And, you know, there may be some text amendments that will need to be considered for a definition of this particular congregate living facility or care facility, if it's not already covered in that overlay. But we think that it's a good fit for the PC as the base zone, and the overlay is there, so we're pretty close. I think if we're not already there.
It's already a PC zone, isn't it?
It's a west side zone.
Oh, right. It's the west side version of the PC zone.
That piece is still WSPA?
Just a portion of the rear part is LSFR, and then we have that mixed-use band around it, and then SE2.
Everything out there is WSP, except the part that's not. That was my question, is whether we were gonna make a new zone or new definitions or new overlay or something for congregate living.
We don't think we'll have to make a lot of modifications, but there may be one.
In a PC zone, it's a lot easier to fit that in than it is if we're going into like an R312 or something.
Yes, it is.
Any other questions, discussion?
The only thing I'm thinking is, the only other thought that I had, might as well share, is that's what I am, is the site in Draper, and the one in Sandy, is that finished yet? I think it is finished, okay, because I know they're building something really big right behind it or next to it or something.
The one in, and are you thinking about the one right on 90th?
Yeah, I drive 90th east and west a lot.
Right. The one on 90th that I think you see on the north side of 90th isn't the one.
Right, no, you're south of 90th.
Yes, so we're about 93rd and just west of 7th East, and it's done and 100% occupied.
Okay.
And we can go to that one too. The one in Draper is just now opening up, and it's very similar to this one. We're also under construction on one very similar to this in Harriman.
The thought that I had was not so much maybe the Sandy area, although that is kind of the historic Sandy area, sort of, or it's close to it. But that location in Draper is right near my office, and the location in all of Harriman is all very high density. Okay, not all of Harriman is high density, but most of Harriman is high density. All the new Harriman is high density. So just a couple of things to keep in mind, that if, you know, it looks like something that fits very well surrounded by other high density things. I would almost recommend flipping the corners and tucking it into that pocket where there's a shopping center coming someday. I've lived out there, by the way, for like 6 years now, and they keep telling me, there's a shopping center coming. Since I've been on the planning commission, I've kind of learned the truth. But, you know, where that shopping center is supposed to be, those commercial shops at Jordan Hills or whatever it's called. Looks like an even better fit on that corner because you got the apartments around it, but that would be a finding B discussion.
If there's a finding B.
We've been over this.
One of the, if you don't mind, one of the things that I've talked with staff and with Tom about is the definition of this type of use, because it differs than regular multifamily, obviously. And I believe, Tom, I gave you a copy of the definition that we wrote for the one in Draper. That could be shared, because I think it clearly defines this as a different kind, and it's not, I don't describe it as a residential project. I describe it as congregate care with a specific use and a specific program, but its impacts cannot be quantified like a residential property because it lives so differently.
Who needs field trips? Yeah, this is great.
That's the Sandy facility right there. Now,
That one's 4 stories?
that one's 4. We were not the architects on this particular facility. The Draper and this one and Harriman, yes. And if you, and I'd love you to see this one too. In this courtyard, you come right in here, and in the courtyard between these buildings as they wrap around, are those things that I talked about, the outdoor cooking, the fountains, the courtyards that constitute the recreation portion. Maybe if you go aerial, you could look down on that, Greg, I don't know. Oh, right in there. If you can kind of see right in there, some of the more formal courtyard area. In the one that we showed you pictures of, there would be 4 of those areas.
How many units would be in that building you're proposing?
We call them suites. And the one that we showed or we site planned and parked to fit it to that site was 298.
How big is that site? Do you have that off the top of your head?
I'm going to defer to Curtis on that. 8 to 9 acres. The one in Draper that you're familiar with, that was a beat to fit kind of situation there. I think we crammed that into 6 acres on that site, and there's no elbow room.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming out tonight and sharing that with us. We look forward to it coming back.
Thank you for your time.
As far as discussion on heights, I'd say it's tall, but I don't know if it's too tall or not.
Well, I need to see it in relation to some other things.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I think it might be worth going and looking at it.
Yeah, a field trip.
Field trip.
Good, you're on your own.
You're not gonna
You won't drive
us?
us?
Come on.
Come on. The booth.
Only if we get donuts and we're only half or even quarter tank full on the van.
Seriously,
Okay.
who,
We'll make it. We'll make it.
who decided against this?
Scary.
Who decided that David Pack was the only one that wanted donuts last night? What was up with that?
One more item tonight with Commissioner Rice's departure and transition to City Council. That did leave us with one position on the DRC open. We discussed that in our pre-meeting, and unless there's any objection to that, I think we want to recommend Commissioner Skoski to fill that position, and let City Council give their final approval on that in a couple of weeks, hopefully. Any opposition to that? Very good. And one more thing that's not on our agenda. I hope you guys all saw the announcement today that Tom is retiring. This will be his last meeting with us tonight. So
Is this your last one?
I feel like we should have been able to make a presentation to you, like when we leave the Planning Commission. We had really short notice on that today, but they've got a little reception planned for him next Wednesday from 2 to 3:30. So I hope everybody can drop in for all or a part of that. And speaking to someone in their 5th year on the Planning Commission here, you've been very valuable to me in helping me learn the ropes, and you've got a great ability at helping to steer discussions back on track where we need to be. We sometimes can stray very far, and you're really good with just a small amount of guidance to get us back where we need to be. So thank you for everything you've done for, at least especially for me, in 5 years here on the commission. So I appreciate the experience you shared with me.
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve the city, and an outstanding opportunity for me to work with the commissions. All of the commissions here have been outstanding, and I will be keeping an eye out for how things go from here. So hopefully you'll see me again.
Excellent.
He'll be proposing developments before you know it.
Yeah.
Gotta do
I don't know
something.
about that.
There's a rule in the commission.
Well, we do have an open position on the commission.
He doesn't live in the city.
Oh,
Not quite. I'd have to annex into the city.
can we get that on our next calendar? Excellent. All right, we can make this work.
That was gonna be my actually last question, was what the time frame is. Do we know when city council's gonna be interviewing or taking applications for that opening?
Not
They're
yet.
taking applications.
No.
Are they taking applications yet, or? Yeah, for the planning commission, not for your job. I was dreaming big for a second there.
Oh yes, for the planning commission, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah.
For our vacancy, not our gaping hole in our heart, but our vacancy in the planning commission.
Yes. Yes. April 10th.
April 10th is the deadline?
Friday.
That's like
So this
after
Friday.
tomorrow?
Friday. Wow.
Wow, oh, nice to know. Okay,
Yes, the city council decided that they wanted to open the field of candidates. They may interview some that applied in December as well, but they wanted to open it back up and look at a fresh list.
excellent.
And it would just be for a 1.5-year term though, right, to finish out Sophie's?
I think that's correct.
Okay. Anything further from anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Any opposition to that?
Second.
We stand adjourned until April 21st, 2015.
The city council takes